Hey everyone, Julie here. So today I want to talk about how to learn verbs. So I'm not going to solve it completely for you, but I might show you some tips and ideas that you might not have thought about before. So why are verbs so important? I believe as a learner and as a teacher that the verbs are a big priority when you get started if you want to speak like fast, because you can convey a lot of meaning with a verb. So think, for example, the verb to go. You can talk about all the places you go throughout the day. You can talk about, I want to go to that place. Like with that verb go, you can say a lot of things. And it's the same with to be, to have, to go, want, like, you can convey a lot of meaning in broken sentences at the beginning. It's fine, but you can say a lot of things. But a lot of languages, contrary to English, conjugate the verbs, which means that usually the ending, but sometimes also the beginning or the whole verb changes depending on who is doing the action, right? So, for example, in French, we'll say j'aime, so I like, or I love, j'aime. But if it's nous, like we, we'll say nous aimons. So it's a different word, right? So I know this to English speakers who've never learned another language can seem very confusing because you're not used to conjugating the verbs as much. So yeah, this is why I think verbs are important and complicated to learn. So two things I want to show you. So first, this is kind of a conjugation table in German, right? So I have four verbs here. I have to be, to do, to have, and to go, which I think are very important verbs. And usually what they teach you in school, and this is why it's very boring, very fast, is to learn the verbs like that. So this is the verb to be, and you should learn, the verb to be in all its forms for all the pronouns. The pronouns are like in English would be I, you, she, he, it, they, we, you. Yeah. So in school, we're usually taught to learn a verb in all its forms for all the pronouns. But realistically, we use I a lot more than we or, they. So there are priorities, I think, with that, especially if your goal is to get to speak fast, not well, but fast, and to be able to communicate. And so instead of learning what I do, instead of learning the verbs like that, I learn them like that. So I will learn the I version of all the verbs, the main verbs. There are like a dozen when I start usually. I'll learn the I version of all of these because I will say, to express what I want to do, what I feel, etc. I'll use I a lot more and I'll understand it because people will use it as well when I ask them, right? So I use I and sorry, you a lot. And so these are the two priorities for me to learn, like you and I, because this is the basis of the conversation, right? And then slowly, as I get more and more vocabulary and more verb, I usually naturally start talking about other people, my family, my friends, people that we know, friends and stuff. And so then I'll kind of slowly start going to she and he and it and they. And so, yeah, slowly, like naturally, the conversation will, like the daily conversations I have with people when I learn a new language, they kind of naturally require me to learn these other pronouns. But the first ones are I and you. And so instead of learning the verbs like that and learn all the forms of a verb and get confused and all of that, just learn the first line, all the I versions and all the you versions. Okay. So this is the first tip. Don't learn the whole verb, just learn the whole pronoun, basically. And then you'll see naturally that once you've said, like here in German, you can see, for example, all the you, they end in st, right? Like their conjugation is to take away the end at the infinitive verb and replace it with st, right? So I'm sure there are exceptions because, but in general, that's it. So then naturally, if I've learned 12 verbs like that with you and I've become very like used to automatically conjugate it without thinking too much about it, then I will be able to conjugate other verbs that I've never heard before just by looking at their infinitive form. And so for me, I think it's a much more natural way to acquire the conjugations rather than learn them by heart, because this is just so freaking boring and confusing and like that. So I think that acquiring them as I would naturally acquire them, through conversation, I think is brilliant. And then, as I said, there are some patterns. So not with all languages, obviously, but most languages do have patterns. And so this is a very old page, now it's very full, in my Arabic notebook. And so basically I want to show you. So you see here, I have some patterns. So like all the beginnings and the endings of the verb that change, I just wrote that. So I didn't write any verb in the middle. You see, like it's empty. I just have the beginning that changes and the ending of the verb that also changes, and the pronouns. And so at some point, once you've used enough verbs without learning them really, once you've used enough verbs, you will get to naturally know the pattern. And that's when you can actually learn it, just to kind of solidify it in your brain. And so what I did is I took a picture of this little tab that I had with the pattern, and I put that as my screensaver on my phone. And so whenever I would be talking to people, I'd be the most annoying person, honestly, because I would stop in the middle of my sentence and go and confirm the conjugation and up and keep talking. And it's really weird, but it did help me tremendously to learn these conjugations. And so, yeah, it's been really painless, really. And I have recommended that to a lot of students of mine in French, and they are doing great. They're doing really, really well with their conjugations because they haven't sat down to learn it by heart in a very boring way. They've just used them basically. So two last things, sorry, I have lots of information on this topic. If you do go this way where you learn by pronoun rather than by verb, don't forget to learn all the pronouns, because I'm not gonna lie, I do have some pronouns that I barely use, and so I get very confused still in a lot of languages, like in Portuguese, in Italian, in Arabic, like all the lesser used pronouns that are even in French. I don't use them as much, obviously, as I or you. I still confuse them a lot, and so my tip is don't make the same mistake I did, and don't forget to actually review once in a while the lesser used pronouns, because you will feel like a complete idiot if you can't say, they go to the beach, and like you can't remember the word for they. So, do review these things once in a while. And a good way to review that is to write a story, for example. So if you write a story about a group of people, you will automatically use they, like every single sentence, almost, and that will help you to just reactivate everything. So this can be a 10-minute exercise, once every 2 weeks or something. Like it's not that hard. So yeah, and then the last thing I wanted to say was there is a website called Reverso. So it is a translator and dictionary and all of that, but they do have a conjugation page. I'm going to leave the link in the description. And basically you can type in any verb in the language that you're learning. You can type it in, even a conjugated version of it or a negative version of it. Like you can just type it in and it will show you the whole conjugation for all the tenses. And that is really good because that's what I use, for example, even in languages that I speak pretty well, like Italian or Portuguese, I still go and check some conjugations in the past tenses, in the future, just to be sure, because I don't want to learn them. I don't want to learn like 500 verbs in Italian. Like this is pointless. So I'd rather go and check, confirm it. And if I need to go and check the same verb 10 times, it's fine, because I know the 11th time I won't need to check it anymore. So I do, and that makes it very painless and fun, contrary to the other option. So yeah, definitely this website is your new best friend if you're struggling with conjugations, because you can just go and check the things, especially in languages like French, for example, where there's lots of irregulars. You can just go and check in there. All right, that's it for today. I hope that was helpful. If you have any other like tips or tricks or little things that you do to learn verbs, let me know, and I'll see you very soon for more language learning tips. Bye.